Hey, Anthem. What's up, my handsome boy? He's like, Mommy's here. Now I'm gonna get some chocolate. I thought you didn't like the green hay. You said I only like the brown hay. So this is Ward Answer. He's giving me that look. He's like, where's my carrots? Where's my peppermints? Where's my Guinness? He's very spoiled. He's here. This is his summer vacation. He's here until next weekend, and then he goes back to the breeding shed at Irish Hill. So, my husband had owned racehorses back in the day. He was a groom at the Standardbred track back when he was in college. So he knew a little bit about horses, and he had bought a racehorse named Well, who did very well, won the Boneyard Stakes. And I had just met him that year that he had bought that horse. So that was my intro to horse racing. I've never been to the racetrack. I've never watched a horse race. So fast forward, that was like 1989. We start watching, he reads a book called Seabiscuit, I would say in about 2000. And he says to me, he says, oh, it was a good book. I said, do you think I'd like it? He said, I'm not sure. You're really not into horses. You're not into horse racing. So I said, I'm going to read it anyway. Well, I read it, and that book changed my life. How did it change my life? Because all of a sudden, I was like, oh my God, I have to own a racehorse. I have to buy one. So we went, he said, do you want to go, a couple days later after I finished the book, he said, do you want to go to Fasig-Tipton and we'll walk around, maybe we'll have a hamburger or something and watch the sale. I'd never been to the sale. So I said, sure. We go there and I walk in and I see, all the stalls are numbered. So I see stall number 007, okay, the James Bond number, right? So I go over and the horse was laying down. And I think to myself, wait a second, in the Seabiscuit book, Seabiscuit used to lay down, and they said very few horses lay down when when they're in their stall. And he was great, so she's gonna be great. That's how simple my mind is. So I walk over to the stall and she gets up and she starts kissing me and I start kissing her. And I said to my husband, I gotta buy this horse. He's like, you are crazy. You are certifiably crazy because we don't even know where they are in the sale. The sale's going on in the other room. 007, most likely she sold, blah, blah, blah. Fast forward, we go in, we're watching the sale. They were on hip number 152. We watch a couple. I said, Tone, I really have to buy her. Something's telling me I have to buy her. So we walk back into the Fasig-Tipton office and I say, did she sell? And they said, she RNA'd. I didn't even know what RNA was. They explained it to me. So they said, we'll call the consignor. Now the consignor is a guy named Stuart Morris, who's still in this business. Now I don't think you've ever cut Stuart Morris's hair because he never takes off his cowboy hat. I'm just kidding, but he has a big cowboy hat and he has a big belt buckle. And I remember he comes over and he's not happy because he was like at the bar having a good time, and he comes over with a drink in each hand and he says, how can I help you, lady? And I said, well, I'd like to see this horse. He says, who's your vet? I said, we don't have a vet. He says, who's your trainer? I said, we don't have a trainer. But don't worry, my husband knows a lot about horses. So he takes her out. He takes her out and he's standing there and we're all standing there. And I say to my husband, Tone, you gotta go act like you know what you're doing. Go feel her legs, go do something. So Tony goes over and he starts feeling her legs like this. And I said, how are they? He goes, the legs are good. I go, we'll take her. Now, you can't, now that I know a little bit about this business, you realize how crazy this story is. But at that time, it made sense. So we end up, we don't know any trainers, we don't know anybody, but he calls a friend of his from the old days who says, I'm using Kenny McPeak. So we call Kenny McPeak, and then the next morning we go and we make a deal with Kenny McPeak and we buy her. And her name was Sugar Plum Girl. Wow. So then Kenny says, all right, I'm going to send her to Kentucky. And I go, whoa, not so fast. I need to spend time with her. I need to bond with her. I love her. Yeah. Kenny's looking like, oh my God, what did I get crazy here? So we leave her here. We find a farm for her here in New York. And she stays about a month and I visit her every day and all that. And then she goes off into training. So fast forward, if you project it into the universe, you can make it happen. That's exactly what happened. I walk around here every day and I say, I don't know how it happened.
Wow.
I don't know how we did it, but we did it. And Sugar Plum Girl lives here. She's retired. But over the years, so Kenny ends up buying a yearling for us named War Dancer.
Right.
And we were part of a group that he put together, and we raced War Dancer, and he took us on a great ride. And we got to race in Grade 1 stakes, and we got to race in the Travers, and we got to race in the Sword Dancer. And then afterwards, when we decided to retire him, and he retired at 6, his last stakes race was at 6, and when he retired, I said, all right, well, we'll stand him in New York. This'll be easy, because he's by Warfront, and boy, did I eat those words, right? I mean, this is the hardest business I've ever been involved with in my life, standing a stallion. But I just wasn't gonna let him fail. So we do promotions and we do parties and we have all we change the rules, right? So for instance, a lot of, the way this business works is you pay the stud fee when the foal stands and nurses. So if that foal stands and nurses that day and dies a week later, you're responsible for the stud fee in this business, but not in our world. If something happens to that foal, or 2 months, 3 months, 4 months later, you say that foal can't race, whatever, you call us up, we'll give you a free breeding, we'll give you your money back, because we're all in this together. That's how we look at this. You started out today when we met, you said there's some great stories, there's some great people, but it's a hard business, and there's like 9 lows for every 1 high. So I feel like we all have to stick together. So we are that kind of a breeder, and we support, other breeders that way. But it's been a very interesting ride for us. So now we have a stallion.
Right. What makes this business such a hard business to be in?
Well, the racing business is really hard because, you're dealing with an athlete, right? And any given day, they're a little bit off. So, or they get injured. So there's a lot of heartbreaks. But on the stallion side, it's very hard. And one of the hard things for us is, so we're standing him in New York. Why? Because we're in New York, because the farm's in New York. And yet, a lot of people in New York only breed in Kentucky. They won't breed in New York. And so it's frustrating, but hopefully over time, he just had Dancing Buck. I don't know if you saw last week, he won the Belmont Turf Sprint, wire to wire by 5 or 6 lanes. So hopefully we're starting to get a lot more respect. Right now, he's one of Warfront's top sons at stud, and we're in New York. But people will drive past our farm and go to Kentucky just to breed in Kentucky. So it's something hopefully we're going to change. The New York program is great. The breeder awards, if you breed to a New York stallion, you get 30% for a win, versus 15 for a non-New York stallion. So it's getting better, and I'm part of that group that's trying to make it even better, adding more New York bred races, adding more New York sired races. But it's hard.
And